Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today let's talk about Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, and let's talk about a general response from many Twitter people, from many commentators, from many D&D commentators, and from many people who comment on Dungeons and Dragons videos on YouTube and on other social media sites, right? And this response is, dude, why do you care so much? Dude, it's a game. Dude, it's just not that important. Calm down. It's not like, why do you care so much, dude? Right? And I'm going to push back really hard against this today and explain to you why these comments are incredibly ignorant, incredibly insensitive, and just impractical and useless, and they shouldn't happen anymore, right? These comments come from D&D commentators. Nerd Immersion and OGGM both this week gave this, calm down, people, it's just a game, right? Like, and they get upset and surprised when they see people get like upset and really adamant and very intense about Dungeons and Dragons topics, right? And they're like, oh, it's just a game, man, relax. And I'm here to say, I also, I'm just gonna. I heard those two say it this week. I'm not gonna throw anybody else, into there. But I think a lot, and we hear a lot of commenters on YouTube videos just saying this, like, oh, just relax. And I just think this is, it comes from ignorance, right? And that's not a cruel word. It just means lacking knowledge, right? And not seeing the full picture. And by the way, I am ignorant of things, right? Like, I have no ability to change the oil in my car. I'm ignorant of mechanics, right? Like, so when I'm saying they're ignorant, I'm not throwing shade. I'm saying they lack knowledge in this area, and we are all ignorant of something, right? Now, this needs to get fixed, because if you're a commenter and you're saying this, you're ignorant of something that you're talking about, right? Like, here's the difference. I don't go tell mechanics how to change oil in cars, right? But if you're in, if you're talking deeply about tabletop role-playing games, you need to drop this noise, all right? So let's get into this. I'm explaining exactly why this whole, dude, relax, it's just a game. Why are you so upset? This is nonsense noise that needs to stop. These comments are useless and should stop immediately. Everywhere on social media, right? So here's where we're at, okay? So first of all, this is a comment that comes from massive ignorance. And here's the ignorance. We have moved up on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, okay? No one in America is really struggling anymore for food or clothing, right? In virtually every area, nowhere in America, if you don't have food, like if you're starving, you are very close to help, right? My church, like, you can come in on Sunday and they will hand you a box of food, right, for nothing, right? And basically, and if you miss that one, there's, like 3 food banks in Philadelphia. And if you miss that one, there's government numbers in America. You could call and say, I'm starving, can I get some food? And you're going to get some help, period. Like, that's a fact, right? Like, clothing is just ubiquitous. Like, clothing, we've 100% solved that, right? You can go to Goodwill, like, you just don't see people, like, and even, like, important clothing, like jackets, right? Like, Burlington Coat Factory gives, like, hundreds of thousands, if not like 1 million coats out a year, right? These are solved, right? Even shelter, like if you're homeless, there's people to call, like, there's organizations ready to help, right? So when it comes to food, clothing, and shelter in America, these are minor concerns, right? Now, I'm not saying for a minute there aren't mental health issues, and that there aren't substance addiction issues. Those are still very real, and then they cause issues in the food, shelter, and clothing area, but they are their own distinct problems, right? So, but the reality is, in America, we have incredible wealth, right? And so we've moved up on the Maslow's hierarchy, right? So one of the things is, like, even 100 years ago, you could end up getting killed, just so somebody else could get food or shelter or something else, right? And even violence in America is the numbers are going through the floor, right? It's virtually impossible. Like, when I was a kid, kids would get into fights, right? And they would punch each other, kick each other. It happened after school 3 times a week, right? Now that stuff happens, kids are expelled like within the week, right? Like it's a completely different world, and our needs have massively changed, right? And so that means the things that we used to get worried and upset about, and that violence would actually erupt over, those things are getting swept away quickly, right? Technology is making it so that we can feed, like, we had a problem, right? We were running out of fossil fuels, right? Fracking solved it. We have 400 years. Like, you go back 20 years, like, you go back 30 years, and they would tell you, oh, we're going to run out of fossil fuels. We won't have anything. And everybody, what are you going to do with your car then? It'll just be a paperweight, right? Like, fracking solved it. We have a 400-year reserve of fossil fuels now. We're not going to run out of fuel, right? And tech has just solved 100 problems like this, right? So now that we've moved up on the Maslow's hierarchy, we care deeply, deeply about art, right? We used to not have time to care about art. We didn't have time to care about, like, art deeply, right? And so we would, so people were like, oh, well, I don't care if that painting is red or blue, right? Or green or orange. People care deeply about things being red or blue. It's like, yeah, they care deeply. All right. So organization colors. That's all I'm gonna say, right? So, wow. So here's the thing. So that's just it. And so where do we arrive, right? And this is really important to understand. People care intensely about shows, about characters, about books, about video games, and very much about Dungeons and Dragons. And they get really bent out of shape and really wound up and really upset, okay? And here's the thing. This is good, right? So first of all, let me just put the rules of engagement down. No one should call other people's names. No one should curse, and no one should raise their voice, right? That you shouldn't be yelling at people. You shouldn't be calling people slurs. You shouldn't be, doesn't matter how upset or whatever. If you're doing that, it's inappropriate, right? But if you are really adamant and you are really intense about Dungeons and Dragons, but you're not cursing at somebody, you're not using slurs, and you're just intense and adamant, and you're caring incredibly deeply about some small esoteric thing about Dungeons and Dragons, others are looking at, people are D&D commenters are looking at people and saying, what the heck? Why do you care this much? And here's the reason why is they can. And this is a good thing. We have progressed as human beings from the point where we care deeply about whether we were going to eat that evening, right? Or have clothes for the winter, or have a roof over our heads. We've moved on, right? And now we care intensely and adamantly about art. And that is a 100% good thing. And so to dismiss someone's concern for a small thing is you not understanding that humans have moved up on the Maslow's hierarchy, right? And so it is you who are ignorant, and it is you who are being insensitive when you dismiss people's intense, adamant attention on small, detailed Dungeons and Dragons esoteric detail, right? And what you're not understanding is, like, this intense, adamant, like, comment in the YouTube video, right? This intense, adamant Twitter post, right? All these intense, adamant videos, right, that are being said about Dungeons and Dragons. This is replacing violence. And that's fantastic, right? Let people be adamant and intense about art, and it replaces them being intense about basic needs, which can really erupt into violence quickly, right? So this is good, and no one should ever dismiss somebody getting really bent out of shape about, what the next D&D book is, right? Now, granted, those people getting bent out of shape, they need to not use slurs, they need to not yell, and they need to not curse, right? I think that still stands, right? But that's just saying, hey, be civil, right? But in caring intensely and deeply about art, you need to understand this is important. This is where we've arrived as humans, and it should be celebrated, not dismissed. Dungeons and Dragons matters. It matters a lot. And we can all be glad that it can matter a lot now. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.